the defense cap. And one more question quickly to Professor Rajat Katruria, that so far India, whether in the G20 forums or any other forums, if you look at, the posturing of India is that there is no retreat from globalization. But if you look at the budget announcements and the way the Ministry of Finance is announcing, it's going towards a little bit of a protection sweep. So could you find that there's an inconsistency in what we project as economic diplomacy and what we announce as a policy imperatives? That's it.
And a fifth question? There.
My name is Robert Pranjoti, I'm a business analyst. My question is specifically for Dr. Roy. Sir, do you think that the policymakers have this futile obsession with the medium-term 3% target, and that often comes at the cost? Do you think our policymakers in the finance ministry have this rather futile obsession with the 3% target, and they perhaps need to get rid of that entirely, because that often comes at the cost of a lot of off-budget borrowing? And although in the previous finance bill, in the 2018 finance bill, some suggestions of the FRDM committee were put, including putting debt as the main cornerstone for meeting fiscal targets. But do you think this 3% target is to go all together?
Thank you. Dr. Katruria, do you want to start by taking Lekha's question?
Sure. Thank you. I had another comment also made, which I will make later on compliance. But yeah, no, there is clearly an inconsistency there. At the G20, I think it stems from the fact that the pronouncements that are made at global fora by both the Prime Minister and by other representatives by the Sherpa, that India is not protectionist and India will sort of embrace globalization. I think that's the right narrative, because I think Ford begins to give us some ambivalence, which is why you get these sort of knee-jerk reactions of increasing protectionism within the country. I also feel that India is trying, and this is sort of subject to correction by political scientists, but India is trying to exert its little bit of muscle, abroad. It's trying to, of course, we are not China, but we are trying to do it. And hence, the former India, where we used to use international commitments for domestic reform, those days, I think, are gone. That means, we would use our engagement with the WTO or the GATT and say we have to reform our patent laws, for example. So using international commitments for domestic reform is not what we are going to do now. We are going to become much more assertive, and as we aspire to become the presidency of the G20 in 2022, we are much more likely to begin to set the agenda. And I hope the agenda by 2020 will be much more sort of in line with sort of globalization, embracing open markets, as everybody says, and that this is only temporary. My only worry is that these are sort of, when you have customs duties, it takes a long time for them to unravel, to take them back. So that's how I see it, a more assertive India trying to become much more assertive, but domestic compulsions, including job creation, I think as somebody asked, are prompting this moves towards protection. I also want to sort of, Yogesh raised the point that I think, I want to, because I think this is important. If you look at page 43 of the budget speech, there are two very nice tables on how the number of taxpayers have increased and how the direct tax collections have increased. And there's, in the last few years, there's a double-digit growth in the number of taxpayers, and there's double-digit growth in amount of direct taxes paid. But the number of taxpayers in India is still about 6% of our population. We started with about 3%, you say India has only 3% taxpayers, and it's increased, but it's only come to about, I think, the latest figures show about 6.3% is the population that is paying tax. And this needs to, as you were rightly saying, this needs to increase much more. And how do you increase it? A nudge is definitely going to be an instrument to be able to do it. There is no way that you're going to be doing it through only the carrot approach. The carrot approach, the stick approach. The stick approach hasn't succeeded. The amount in litigation that the government is owed today, if all of that money came to the government, as the Economic Survey 2017 pointed out, is over 3,31,000 crores is what the government is owed. That is caught up in litigation, not owed, but that is caught up in litigation. So, I mean, sticks are not going to work. It has to be a combination of better enforcement, but I think much more nudge, which sort of, and our research, and including NIPF research, I was quoting some study that they've done almost, Arindam, I think they've done it, Ratin, said, people don't pay taxes because, the comments that they make when they don't pay taxes, they want to be out of the tax net, we don't want to expose ourselves to harassment and scrutiny. That's a major reason, which is why I'm saying friendly tax administration and nudging people to pay taxes. And the other is, which cannot be an excuse for not paying taxes, which is, look at the quality of public goods that I get in return for my taxes. And if that's the quality of public goods that I'm going to get, then I'm not going to pay taxes. I mean, these are some of the reasons that even 5 years ago, when we did the study on compliance, where we found the compliance cost to be fairly high, these are reasons that continue to exist. But continuing doing compliance cost estimation and recognizing that there is a problem, I think that is the first step. And as I showed in my slide, the fact that you've begun to take action against officers who I think that's the first step towards acceptance rather than denial. Otherwise, we used to say, oh, there's no problem, it's all e-filing, there's no harassment, there is no face-to-face interaction, so there's no harassment, and therefore everything is fine. I think recognizing that there is a problem is the first step towards trying to increase the tax.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee. Would you like to take the question on the education
budget? I think the first thing about how does one finance this, I think the issue is that we like to spend rather than invest. So that's what I meant when I said that we restrict ourselves to this 3%. Because the question is that the money available for investment now is not the only monies that we have access to if we start thinking differently. So unless we introduce a structural shift in how we think, and that is something Yamini has been referring to, you can't do it because, so that is my first thing, right? So if we choose to invest, then one can start thinking about how do we raise that and where do we raise the investment from. The question about the distribution and the question and between the states and how does one improve it. One, true, I don't think India's problems with education and health are only to do with money. We have huge governance issues in our schools, in our colleges, in our R&D structures. Can you use PVP? Of course, I think that not education, maybe not so much, but in R&D and actually at higher levels of education and research, there are models available across the world where, and including some states in India, who are experimenting with combining public monies with private money and privately adjudicated grants to promote research. Again, it's possible. And so let's go back to this question of higher education and school education and the focus on higher education. I think the first fact that we have recognized is that higher education is expensive than school education. That's a fact. Therefore, if you want higher education, you will need to spend more. It's just more expensive. It's more expensive because the cost for students are high. That includes faculty costs, infrastructure costs, and everything else. So, and actually, if you look at most developed countries, more than 75% of their budgets on education are actually spent on higher education and R&D. Again, because their schooling systems are perhaps more stable than ours. So while you may need to India, obviously, that is the other thing that we keep on the 3%. We have a much younger population than the countries we compare ourselves to with that 3% thing. So the 3% is not the, or 5% is not the ballpark that we should be looking towards, because our per capita, with that same 5% of our GDP, our per capita spend is much lower. So those graphs I did not show. So So I think the answer to the question is we have to start thinking differently about how one invests in education, how one thinks about investing in health, and then find answers to what the challenges that we face in terms of raising those investments. That would be my
Can I just add one point to this, just in continuation with the education issue? I think the new education policy, certainly on elementary education in particular, is a really important opportunity to try and think more creatively about what you can do with the money that you have. As I said, I don't envisage going forward that there's going to be a significant shift in the quantum of expenditure in education, even though that's what the new education policy is saying. But a lot of the challenges could be addressed if we were to think about how to spend the money that we have somewhat better. The new education policy very clearly, I think for the first time in a policy document in India, and I think in many other parts of the world, acknowledges that from the point of view of elementary education, India is facing a very critical learning crisis. We haven't been able to figure out how to ensure that our school-going children are able to acquire basic foundational skills. And as a consequence, any talk about any other levels of the education system somewhat fall out of the way if you can't do these basics right. If we are recognizing that, then we could take that as an opportunity to go back to how we fund elementary education. For the moment, the bulk of our elementary education expenditure is tied, somewhat surprisingly, to teachers' wages. And there's a whole other question there about whether that is an efficient use of money in terms of the quantum of wages, but also tied to infrastructure creation. If we were to take this as an opportunity to reshape that and give a lot more flexibility to state governments to be able to use the funds they have that are not tied to wages, which is what the government of India gives to states in the form of its schemes, and allow them to use this money for investments in improving quality. Some states want to focus on teacher training, other states want to focus on remedial, some states want to focus on mission mode, adding more teachers to class 1 and class 3, which all the data tells you are the two places where you can actually make a change. If you don't fix it by class 3, the problem goes away, the problem remains unsolved. So there is an opportunity to take what you've got today and reshape. Right now, state governments have all of about 2% of the Government of India centrally sponsored scheme, what used to be Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and is now Samagra Shiksha, for investments in what is called learning enhancement or innovation. And even that is tied to decisions that are taken individually. So changing that, I think, will go a long way in empowering states, and most of the innovation on the learning crisis and on addressing the learning challenge in classrooms is happening at the state government level. You'll see a lot of improvement.
Dr. Shah, would you like to talk about skills in the context of the question on inequality? Because if we are going to have this welfare architecture of compensatory cash payments and provision of private goods, then is skills the only way to also resolve the job crisis and therefore inequality?
That's a big question, and I'm not sure I have any of the answers to that big question. But I want to pick up where actually Yamini left off. We still haven't quite cracked our nutrition crisis, the first 1,000 days of any child, that is vital to their cognitive, physical, and emotional development. I think we also need to add to that first 1,000 days the next 2,000 days, and really think cohesively of the first 3,000 days of a child's life. At some interaction with policymakers, we put forward the idea that if you can accept that India was and is still possibly the open defecation capital of the world, and therefore you have a Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, why not have something that you might want to call a Buddhiman Bharat Abhiyan, which allows us to think about what is happening to our children in grades 1 to 3, who are simply unable beyond that level, and lots of evidence to that effect, essentially to keep up with the learning that is required. And once you are blind in a classroom after grade 3, effectively you remain blind all the time that you remain in school. So thinking cohesively and making a promise to our children that we are going to ensure that kids who are already in grades 1 to 3 will catch up with numeracy and literacy at their grade level, and all children entering in these next 5 years into these grades will likewise do so. That's going to be perhaps one of the most important things that this government could do, because foundational learning is really in a crisis mode. Just as Ratin talked about the silent fiscal crisis, I think there's an even more silent learning crisis that simply is not going to provide us the foundations of any kind of economy that we are looking at. And I think that's really foundational to everything. Beyond that, when we start thinking about skill development, work that we've done at NCR tries to break that down into the acquisition of skills, the matching of skills, and very seriously now, the anticipating of skills. Because the world is changing and modes of production are changing and ways of working are changing. So that we now need to work at all three levels. We need to make sure that the acquisition of skills, possibly bringing the skill acquisition closer to the job place. That means apprenticeships and other forms of on-the-job learning. Moving away from lifetime employment to lifetime employability, which means continuous learning, and that's the matching of skills with the new kinds of jobs. And